Excellent. Welcome, folks. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us tonight on our Building a Neuro-Inclusive School Roadshow. Tonight we are online. We've been in Wellington region. We've been in the Auckland area. Tonight we're online. Next week we're in Christchurch. So super exciting times for us getting out and speaking with people. So a karakia just as we begin. Tu taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I raro, tu taua mai I roto, tu taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie huie tai ki e. It's a beautiful karakia. It's about all of the people from all of the different places coming together to get stronger together, which is what all of this is all about. So welcome. Let us do some introductions. So we have with us Justine Munro, the CEO of the Neurodiversity in Education Project. We have myself, I'm Madeleine Armstrong-Wilcox, the head of programs here at the Neurodiversity in Education Project. We also have some fantastic young neurodiversity champions. So welcome to Annabelle and Nikita and Maria and Katie Rose. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just have a quick look at what we'll be talking through tonight. So we're going to start off by talking about what do we mean by a neuro-inclusive school? This is the whole thing that we're talking about. What actually is that? We're going to then look, turn to our champions, our young neurodivergent teens who are going to tell us about what actually matters to them at school. What does make a difference for their schooling? And amazing to hear their perspectives. Then we'll talk you through what we do at the Neurodiversity in Education Project that can support you to build your neuro-inclusive school. And we've got time at the end for some questions and discussion. If you have questions throughout, use the chat or the Q&A function in Zoom. We'll be checking that out as we go, but we most likely will be able to spend some time answering questions and having some discussion time at the end rather than as we go. As we go, though, you might like to pop in who you are, what your role is, and whereabouts you're from, just so that everyone gets a sense of who is here. So let's have a look at what are we talking about? What is a neuro-inclusive school? Over to you, Justine.
Thank you so much, Madeleine. Fantastic to have so many wonderful teachers and school leaders with us today. And it's a real testament to you guys that once again, you're giving up your evening to really make a difference. But I'm excited to really share our approach to neurodiversity, which is that we are all different. Every one of our brains it has its own unique setup. We have our brains are as different as our fingerprints, and that reality that we are all neurodiverse is really important, because it means that we don't just have the different kids and the normal kids, the typical kids and the weird kids. We have all of us who all have brains that need support in different ways. Neurodivergent people in a particular set of ways, but all of us. And so that's the key. If we take one thing away from tonight, is the reality that celebrating the glorious neurodiversity of everyone in our schools is the way to think about it. So I love this one. No brain is the same. No brain is the best. Each brain finds its own special way, and keeping that focus on celebration and enjoying difference is so important. Are you switching, Madeleine? DQ.
Yep.
Yeah, so just some definitions to start off with, because it does get confusing, and this language is changing, and I think maybe our champions can speak to this later, but as our young people really embrace brain-based differences and really we're talking about it as learn to speak brain, learn to actually get really cognizant of the way their particular brains are working. They are developing their own ways of describing who they are, and it tends not to be the binaries that might have been, you know, divergent and typical. So I think this language will continue to evolve. But right for now, neurodiversity is that natural biological diversity of human minds. It's part of being human. Neurodivergent is individuals who have brains that diverge in a significant way from what is typical. And usually that means that they, you know, they get a diagnosis, and you don't have to have a diagnosis by any matter of means to be neurodivergent. Most people won't ever get one because of how much they cost and how few diagnostic professionals we have. But to the extent that people struggle in the system that's basically set up for the majority, and you know, when we don't give a lot of thought to it, we set up systems for the majority. So those of us who struggle in that will have those neurodivergent sort of brains. And neurotypical, as Madeleine says, you know, I think we're even wondering whether that kind of language works anymore. But there will definitely be a group of children at your schools, as many potentially as 1 in 5, who have brains that differ in some quite significant way from what might be seen as typical. Madeleine. So what is absolutely critical is that we give conscious thought. Now we understand this about brains and the different ways in which every student learns, communicates, interacts with each other, manages themselves, senses the world around them. Once we understand that each student sitting in our classes has got those differences, then the question becomes, how do we create an environment? How do we create activities? How do we create a culture and norms that ensure that each one of those students, every student in every class, activity and environment has the support they need to thrive, no matter how their brains is wired. So Madeleine, next one. And I guess the just before we go on to our fantastic champions, the reality is that this neurological understanding, this way of appreciating how we learn, the science of learning, is relatively new. It's not something that most of you, that almost no one was taught as you went through Teachers College. It's new and it's changing rapidly. But what we do know is, as an organisation, we are absolutely committed to supporting you to go through this process of actually understanding how your school is supporting those brain-based differences, how, you know, free, simple, fun, practical tools that you can use tomorrow to make a difference. And that's what we're going to be exploring in the third section here. But at this point, that's the aspiration, a neuro-inclusive environment where everyone can feel that their brain is supported to do their best. So now back to you, Madeleine. What really makes the difference?
Super. So we have gathered together and we've been working with the young neurodiversity champions who act as spokespeople and advocates for our young neurodivergent people in the education system. And they have been telling us what helps and what doesn't, and what are the things that our teachers can do, as Justine said, immediately. Not policy changes, not systemic changes. We know those things are desperately needed, but they take years, decades. They're not going to make a difference for the kids that we're teaching in our classrooms right now. So right now, what are some of the things we can do? So I'm going to hand over to champions, and just to give you a heads up, I'm going in reverse alphabetical order. So Nikita, you'll be up first. I want to ask and hear from you, what is it that you're a teacher or a school that you are in or have been in could have done to make that environment more neuro-inclusive for you? Nikita.
Yeah, so first of all, it's just having an understanding that different people succeed under different environments. And this doesn't just apply to neurodivergent people, it applies to everyone. Um, and I'll give you an example of this. So in closed book tests, I would perform very, very poorly. But if I had time to write up a report, for example, um, my work would often go into much greater detail than my peers. And I even had a teacher pull me aside and tell me, Nikita, did you get help with this assignment? Because it's written to university standard. And I was very, very shocked and appalled because I hadn't cheated or anything, but that's what was being heavily implied. So it's just that understanding that different people succeed under different environments. And if you try to force rigidity and control, it's just not going to work for everyone. And the second point that I would like to bring up is considering the sensory needs of neurodivergent learners. We get very stressed if there's a lot of things going on around us, and noise dampening headphones would help immensely. A sensory friendly room to retreat to. When we were at Festival for the Future, I only needed about 20 minutes to recover from all of the sensory overwhelm, and I was back out. I was rested, I was recharged, and I was, ready to take on everything. So it's just taking all of those considerations into account and talking with each other, collaborating, and finding ways that we can incorporate these strategies that works for everyone and in a way that is fair. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. Okay, Maria, talk us through your ideas of what your school could be doing to be more neuro-inclusive.
Well, I think in general with neuro-inclusive policies, generally what we see is that they often work they especially help neurodiverse people, and they can also have great benefits for neurotypical people, if that's the term you want to use as well. Now, I've been told to limit it to one thing, which was a pretty easy choice for me. It is actually teaching and giving clear instructions. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the style of education and the way that we teach our kids, especially in New Zealand, has been moving further and further towards the idea of student-centered learning. It's professionally known as a heutagogy. So this idea that students should be leading everything that they learn, should be getting to choose what they learn, how they learn it, is completely ridiculous. It is not backed up by any science. It pains me that it's being used in so many schools because I have autism. I have autism and giftedness. And what we see with a lot of neurodiverse people is that they struggle to manage time. They struggle to where they've got all these tasks or all these options. They struggle with decision paralysis. They need things explained to them clearly with structure over and over again. So when I walk into my calculus class and my teacher is sitting right there, and he's got a degree in math, he's got a degree in teaching and a degree in math, but he's just sitting at his desk. He throws us all a book and says, "Oh, learn calculus." And he's not teaching us. He should be standing up the front teaching us, because I can't just look at the words, I can't just look at the equation and figure it out. It's compounded by the fact that I'm neurodiverse, but to be honest, a lot of kids struggle with that in general. So I think that's the main thing. So if I was to ask all of the teachers who are currently here of how you should do this, I get that it's not you. The general movement of education is leading towards this extreme heutagogy, this extreme idea of student-centered learning, literally removing the teacher's role and making it up for students to teach themselves everything. But I implore you to seek a different way of teaching. Personally, I'm a big fan of rote learning, like what we last saw 30, 40 years ago. I understand most of you probably don't want to do that, but even a blend of it too. You might not need to be talking for the whole class, but 20 minutes, 10 minutes at the start of every class, my maths teacher greatly explaining everything in detail, allowing me to ask questions will be great, will be incredible for me. Right now, I am considering dropping maths. It is a term before the exam, and I'm considering not doing these exams because he has not prepared me enough. Because it should not be up to students to teach themselves this advanced things. So acknowledging that neurodiverse people need this clear, direct instructions, and providing that can make the classroom a safe space. It can make them a place they want to go. They can take things away from it. My music teacher, he's an absolute legend. He's teaching us music theory. He stands at the front of the class, talks for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Again, I'm not necessarily asking for that change right now, but I take so much away from that class, and it's so comforting to be there because I know that my learning needs will be met. And in general, I think every teacher should strive to be like him. He's an absolute legend.
Amazing. It's so great. So that need for structure and clarity
and guidance.
What is being taught in guidance, that explicit teaching has come through loud and clear from many of our neurodivergent young people. So structure, clarity, and that explicit teaching. Thank you, Maria. Lily, I apologise, Lily, for not having your photo on this lovely slide, but here you are in person, which is far better than just a photo. Would you like to tell us what your school could do to support your sense of neuro-inclusion?
Okay. Sorry. I might be a bit all over the place, so sorry about that. But my main thing is conversation. Like ultimately at the end of the day, we can suggest all these ideas, but without having the conversations with your actual students, like you're not going to get it exactly what they need right, because it's like neurodiversity, like everyone is different. Like what your students need is going to be different from each neurodiverse student, each individual person, even with no matter what they are. And I think one of the main problems with what I've experienced in all my schools is that neurodiversity is seen as such a taboo topic. Like people are scared to talk about it from my experiences. And the people who are willing to talk about it don't usually actually know what it is, and that's the reason why they're willing to talk about it. So I think having those conversations is really the most important thing. I will say I support Nikita in trying to get sensory rooms. It doesn't need to be big. It can be literally just lunchtimes. You set an allocated classroom, dark space, maybe a few sensory toys. Perfect. Most of your neurodiverse students and even neurotypical students will probably well appreciate that, because school is quite draining for everybody, and having those really low sensory spaces is beneficial to everyone. Like when I was up in the Festival of the Future, we did have a sensory room, and I can probably say that not everyone in that room was neurodiverse, but everyone in that room was really respectful. Everyone in that room had got the rest that they needed to take everything they needed away from that experience. And so I suppose not underestimating the impact of sensory needs. Like, it's not just as simple as slap on a pair of headphones, oh, you're all good now. Yeah. And right at the moment, I am trying to like get more inclusivity and like awareness in schools. But one thing I think would have made a impact on my whole entire life, like the direction it went, is actually educating yourself on the symptoms, especially if you're in early childhood. Because if I had been diagnosed earlier, my whole entire life would have been severely different. Like, I have gained great character development, yes, but at the same time, I have struggled quite a lot. And it's especially if you're like, for the gifted students, like, it's not just because they're quirky. Like, sometimes it is a bit deeper than that. So yeah, those are probably my ideas.
So fantastic. Thank you so much. That idea of actually asking neurodivergent young people what works. Talk about, help us understand, getting those conversations about our brains going is a point we're going to pick up on later. And that early identification. Let's not wait until the wheels have fallen off before we really start recognizing and understanding our neurodivergent young people. All right, I must be up to Katie Rose.
Awesome. I've narrowed it down to a couple of points that I think are really important, and I think they're more qualities of a teacher or just anyone within the education space. And I think patience is a really huge one. It can be a lot to ask, especially with how hectic teaching is or being an educator. It's a really hard job. But how you view us will be picked up by other students as well. So as soon as a student is labeled naughty or is labeled as a hassle, that is going to be how they're viewed by a lot of people, especially because teachers are such influential people in our lives. They are the people that we look up to. So I know this is my experience, and it can be different for others, but we don't want to be a hassle, and we don't mean to be extra, but our needs are different. They're diverse. We are not the same. Everyone's not the same. But we are not naughty. We just need a little bit of extra guidance and a little bit of support and possibly a little bit more patience. Another thing is understanding. We're also not alien either. So it's okay. It's like Lily was saying, having a conversation with us. Sometimes you can tell what a student needs, but sometimes the student will also know what they need. They might tell you if they need a break. They might tell you if they need a moment, or if they're really stressed, they might need some direction and some guidance. And understanding comes with getting to know us as people as well. You can't just teach a student without getting to know us and understanding a little bit more. And also coming to us with a positive initial approach, coming to us as students that you want to learn and you want to uncover like the greatness in us. If you come to us with that approach, we're going to be so much more reactive, and it's going to be it's a better experience. And I put here flexibility. So flexibility can relate to a lot of other points that we've touched on today. So flexibility in how we do exams, flexibility in sensory rooms, flexibility. So some of us may need an extra hand. It's like that quote, you can't judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree or something. We're going to need some help with what we do best, with how we learn best. There we go. And yeah, helping us and seeing us will not take away from others. Like, our needs are not too much to ask for, because that's just who we are. That's just how we are. And another really, really, really big thing, sorry if I'm going on.
No, carry on. It's great.
is educating yourselves, because educating yourselves is also educating others. So I've written a few things here. Just please use our resources. Please reach out. Have a hunger and desire to want the best for your students. Like, you all being here tells me or shows me that you care, which is more than some teachers can say. And don't underestimate the power and difference you make by caring, by not undermining us. You are fundamentally and personally shaping these young minds. Like, teaching is more than just a job, which is so special and incredible, but it also highlights how darn important you are. Like, you are making a difference, and we look up to you. So how you react really sticks with us. And also, back to the uplifting aspect, is it's not just a neurodiversity is not a downside. It's not just a label. It's not something bad. It's who we are. We cannot change it. It is part of us, and none of us would probably want to change it. So your help, your patience, your understanding, flexibility can change a student's education and their experience. So I think that's really important. Just the way you look at us, the way you approach teaching us is really, really important. So
beautiful, heartfelt message. Thank you so much, Katie Rose. And we've reached the end of the reverse alphabet. Annabelle.
Hello.
What else can you add?
Can I add an introduction first? Or because okay, so I just want to, this is going to sound really weird, and I'm so sorry to the person, Louise Ponce, you were my year 3 teacher. I just had to put that out there. I noticed your name. I was like, I haven't heard that since 2012. I am from Pendleton. I'm so sorry. I just had to put that out of the way. You were amazing. I remember you. I just had to, I couldn't. Okay. Right. Now, anywho, and I'm also glad you asked that question, because my big thing, or my 2 big things, and the one that's been covered before has been kind of the talking and the listening, and if it's acting like a fish, treat it like a fish kind of thing. So with the lack of availability of diagnoses, the best thing, I'm studying to be a teacher. I want to be a primary school teacher, and my teachers throughout, I've been really lucky in that I've had incredible teachers throughout my entire schooling career, I suppose, and they listened to me, and we talked, and we said, okay, well, I'm struggling with this. What can we specifically do to help me with this specific thing? And it ended up, I was only diagnosed with ADHD in my final year of high school, but we were still able to put things in place beforehand because we had those conversations. Now, for learning environments, especially for little children, when I was in year 8, a teacher made a Google form, and that Google form she sent out at the beginning of the year, and it had about 5 questions on it, and it said something along the lines of, and this can be age appropriate to the kind of age group you teach, but here's a list of different environments. Here's a loud environment, a silent environment, etc., etc. What environment do you work best in, or what environment do you like? What appeals to you? So although we can never suit the environment to every single person, that's just unattainable. If the majority of the class per se put on that form that they really enjoy, or they work best in a class with dim lights, then perhaps even considering that the lights are dimmed more than they are bright, because you have the majority of students who clearly like this, and so in cater and being able to look at that. But my teachers have been, the teachers are just I say this a lot, and people probably sick of me saying it, but because we can never guarantee what happens when a child or a student goes home, whether they are supported in their home environment, but we can and we should guarantee that when they come to school, if that is only the one place that they feel supported, that is the one place they feel supported. And that's what it has been like for me throughout my school years, and why I want to then carry on and become a teacher. Anywho.
Fantastic. So that idea of a Google form is a really direct action linking to that idea of have conversations and ask what helps. So one thing that is super specific and actionable. Thank you so much, champions, for those insights. Katie Rose, thank you for your, and Annabelle, your message that teachers are so very important and impactful. My teacher heart is really responding to those thoughts beautifully. Thank you so much. So our organisation, the Neurodiversity in Education Project, we are here to help you build your neuro-inclusive school environment. So let's turn now and look at some of the things that we can help you with. First of all, our big three pictures. Oh, sorry, Justine, would you like to talk about this one here?
Absolutely. And just in case you're saying, why have we never heard of you guys before? The reality is we used to be an organisation called the Centre for Gifted Education. So we focused on sort of high potential learners, most of whom had multiple neurodivergences. But the reality that we saw and the opportunity and challenge we saw was that the need was not just with these high potential learners, but with all neurodivergent learners in our schools. And I guess we've, along with our partners, we have a coalition of ADHD New Zealand, Autism New Zealand, Dyslexia Foundation. We've all started really to question how significant diagnostic labels need to be in the day-to-day reality of a school. The reality is that most of our neurodivergent young people have multiple diagnoses, and even within diagnoses, people exhibit very, very different brain types and functions. So the most important thing is actually the fact of neurodiversity and having an idea of what characteristics our neurodivergent learners might be presenting with, so that we can adjust and support in line with their needs. So that really challenged us, and in a very exciting way, to redevelop our organisation well beyond its 25-year history, and to rebrand as the Neurodiversity in Education Project, building on all that knowledge and experience in our programs and working with teachers and schools right across New Zealand, but now working with our partners and working with our young people. And we're absolutely passionate about the voices of young people driving what we do, because they're sitting there in our classrooms every day. And as you've heard from our incredibly articulate champions, 15 of them, they can tell us very clearly, very practically, with a lot of, constructive, dynamic, what they need. So that's what we're about as an organisation. So we support neurodivergent students. We have specific programs and resources for students. All of these are on our website. So please check it out at neurodiversity.org.nz, and you'll see the full range. We empower educators. We provide tools, training, a community of teachers and school leaders who are all about neuroinclusivity. And we're really committed, as we said at the beginning, for resources and communities that are free, that are fun, that are simple, that are practical, that are actionable. We get it. Our people are teachers too. And whilst we and the third thing we do, we advocate and partner for change. We spend a lot of time down in Wellington at Parliament, bailing up ministers and MPs and ministry officials. We do this in conjunction with the other partners in the coalition and with groups like Education for All. So we're very active at the systemic level. That's not in any way ignored, but we think it's really important both to work at that system level and at the very much the pointy end in classrooms. Because as Madeline said, we are not going to get a teacher aide in every classroom next week, even next year. We are not going to suddenly have, reams of new educational psychologists and occupational therapists and everything else. We have to, as educators, be able to build our skills and capabilities to do great work in our classrooms with the resources we've got, and we're here to help with that.
Super, right. Okay, so we have 4 really exciting new programs that we'd love to share with you and let you know about tonight. First of all, our Building a Neuro-Inclusive School community. This is about that educator support where we can bring educators together online, because we know there's a tyranny of distance, obviously. We have cafe sessions. We had a fantastic session this afternoon where we meet together after school. It's a BYO coffee and cake. Sorry, we can't provide that over Zoom, but it's connecting like-minded educators. We can come and talk, share, connect with each other, inspire each other, and sometimes it's just great to be in a room with other people who get it. Which is fantastic. We run workshops like this one, but also on specific topics. And each year we will have a symposium day where we pick a theme, something that's really bubbling away for many of us, and invite in speakers and share strategies and ideas. So that community aspect is really important. You'll know as educators, you want to speak with other teachers. We also provide resources for free, and resources that are new and fun and practical and super easy to use. I know as a teacher, I don't want to wade through pages and pages of long instructions and complicated thinking, and you have to do 500 different things. We are designing resources with our champions, coming from their voices, that are practical and easy for teachers to use. So we have at the moment some tools, we have some guides, and also some online learning programs, all for free, that you can join, you can download and take part in for free. I'll just show you one example of a tool that we are working with teachers to use. So this is a tool that helps you as a teacher say, I'm noticing some interesting things about this particular child that I've got in my mind. And it helps you consider those noticings under different categories. So you might think about their thinking or learning or processing or their social interactions with peers. Helps you kind of categorize those things you're noticing. It also helps you tease out if you are noticing lots of issues, those sticking points, and reminds you to look for strengths and be alert to noticing those unique strengths of our neurodivergent learners. But what is most exciting to me as a teacher in this tool is the strategies that you might like to try out. This is by no means a comprehensive list of everything you could ever do for any child, but it gives you these starting points, these things you might try. And as teachers, I think we're really good at trying something and going, oh, well, maybe for my class, I'm going to tweak it like this and change it. And it gives us some great starting points as teachers to be able to try things out. So that's an example of a tool that we've developed and tools that we'll keep developing that are really practical and easy to use for teachers. So the next program that I'd like to introduce you to is clubs, and Annabelle here is one of our clubs moderators, so she gets to check in on what's happening in clubs all the time. Clubs is our online platform where kids can connect with other like-minded kids. We have 10 different club areas that have arisen out of what kids have been telling us they're interested in. We have a junior and a senior version of each club, give or take, and they're places where kids can come and connect with other kids who are passionate about history or change making or design or coding, our most popular club at the moment. And they can chat with those other kids and share work and share ideas and get feedback and say, hey, I need new ideas for my book chapter that's based on warrior cats or something else they're into. Who can help? And then there's 5,000 new ideas, and some of them are, weird and wonderful, as our kids can be, and some of them are great. So it's that online connection, but connection's just the start. It's also about kids being able to access interesting learning experiences that they can choose, that aren't dictated for them and given for them. Oh, you're good at maths? Here, have this extra textbook and go and do it. It's self-directed, so kids can choose learning experiences that interest them and that they look at and go, huh, that sounds really interesting. So self-paced, self-directed, all online and all for free. We have teachers in schools using clubs as part of extension or enrichment programs, or just part of, hey, you know what? I've got this real group of quirky, sparky kids who are all really into something. I want to bring them together and do something together and use that amazing sparkiness they have in some way. Clubs is perfect for that. So all for free. You can sign up on our website. The address is just there. Then we have Mind Plus, which is our direct-to-student support program. So Mind Plus operates in different ways. We have our in-person classes, online classes, and our in-school classes. The in-school option is funded by the Ministry of Education as a way to develop not just our magic students, but also their teachers and their schools. It's a two-pronged attack type program. Those needs of our gifted and otherwise neurodivergent students are met. Intellectual needs, social and emotional needs, their need to be with like minds. But we also train a teacher in a school who works alongside one of our specialist teachers as their mentor and coach, and to deliver Mind Plus in your own school. We already have 13 schools signed up, ready to go, and we're just waiting for a few more. Ministry of Education funding supports this program.
Well, actually, Madeleine, I think it's important to say, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
We've had 13 schools doing it for, I think, 2 years now. So we have schools that have actually completed the program, which means that their teacher is now trained up and running the program in their school by themselves without needing our coach. And in fact, many schools have now want us to train more teachers and are now having 2 or even 3 Mind Plus classes going in their schools. So it's very much we want to train the trainer. We want everyone to be able to have access to this amazing program, which continues to evolve. Big focus on social and emotional learning, executive functioning, explicit teaching of these skills that neurodivergent children are really asking for.
Very exciting times at Mind Plus. And Justine, welcome to my brain. Tell us about that.
Fantastic. I am very excited to introduce our latest sort of very creative offering, which has been a real group innovation. It's been subject to loads and loads of testing by our champions, by our communities. And we are so pleased to now be sharing it with all of you. It's for sale on our website. You can see the link there, and we use it at workshops all the time. What is it? It's basically a tool to help all of us talk about brains. It's a way that we normalize and make talking about how our brain is feeling, how it's responding to different circumstances, to sensory challenges, to support challenges, to processing. So we can actually talk about it, and sometimes words can be hard. So Madeleine, if you just want to skip to the page with all of these beautiful images on it, these are the kind of images, we kind of love them all now. Now I see them, we've been playing this with so many people, and what's just fascinating is how people use these images to share with others the way their brain is feeling, and how everyone it kind of has a different take on them, and that can even differ between, you know, one day and the next. But it's a wonderful tool to help very young children as well as adults actually share with other people what's going on inside their heads. And Madeleine, if you just flick back one, the game is a very flexible one, and I think it's true to say that we're playing it constantly with different groups, and we're learning all the time about other ways to use it. And I think kind of just having it in the classroom, having it around, people start picking up and playing with it in different ways, and that's really exciting. But one of the key ways of using it is to have a group and have a conversation about what my brain feels like in different scenarios when I am in the zone, when I'm feeling good. You know, I know I'm doing good work. My brain feels happy. I feel calm. My nervous system is regulated. You know, and I'm enjoying myself and what I'm doing, and that's really where we want our kids to be all of the time. They won't always be able to be, but in the zone as much of the time as possible is what we want for our learners. We also then have people thinking about situations where their brain is not happy, where they're under strain, where they might be overloaded sensorily, they might not be able to get support, they may be confused about what they are supposed to be doing, they may feel under a lot of pressure. How does your brain feel in that situation? And it's just amazing how when we play it, what we see, the key insight is that everyone is different, no matter whether they have a diagnosis or identify as neurodivergent or very neurotypical. Everyone's brain is different. So it's a really powerful tool of sharing and communicating diversity. So look, you can buy a classroom set on our website. You can buy a single one. We can come to your school. The champions run workshops where, you know, we take an hour, we play the game together, we talk about aspects of neurodiversity. Young people lead it and can work directly with staff. We go into individual schools, we go into kahuiako, we work with young people. So yeah, we are really open to working creatively with you to help really normalize these conversations about our very exciting brains.
Super. Okay. So, folks, we haven't run too much over time so far. Now we have time to tackle some of those questions.
Madeleine, we have a problem with the chat. It isn't working. So I think the best way is for people to put questions into the Q&A, and maybe I could look at one that is in there already. Would that be a good place to start?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Gianna, thank you so much for your thoughts about starting a lunchtime club for neurodivergent students. That's a really powerful idea, and it's something that we are developing a resource that we'll be sharing soon based on the ideas and experiences of our champions, some of whom have actually themselves started clubs like that at schools, and we are working with other young people who've got in touch with us at other schools who have started clubs, more secondary school students. So I think it's a really fantastic way of bringing together like minds, and we are looking forward to creating that resource and then holding a workshop on it. So we will definitely let you know. To the champions, does anyone want to say anything about that as a starting point?
I'll jump in. One of the teachers that we've been working with runs a lunchtime tabletop gaming club as a proxy for a lunchtime neurodiversity club, and he says it gathers a fair number of our neurodivergent teens who come together to hang out and just play various tabletop games. Sometimes it's chess, sometimes it's Monopoly, sometimes it's, you know, all sorts of exciting other games. But that's a kind of low bar way of running such a club.
I also love the way Greta and Jody, your people are talking about what you've done. And I think a really key part of it here is making the club open for everyone who wants it and who values it, and not othering our neurodivergent students by saying you only go there if you're the weird kid. By making it a beautiful sensory space, as I think Nikita might have said at the Festival for the Future. You didn't have to be neurodivergent to use it. Many neurodivergent people did, but it was just a beautiful space where everyone wanted to be. And so actually that kind of openness and neurodiversity is for everyone, I think really helps everyone in the end.
Fantastic. What other questions do we have that we can tackle? Justine, would you like to pick another question for us?
Yeah. Yes, we will be sharing the webinar, so absolutely that will be able to view and to share with others. I always regard our champions' contribution in particular as just gold. So please do share that with other staff members. I'm just going back looking at many of ours questions as categories. One thing we could potentially just let you know about also that is a really awesome resource we've created is also part of the Building a Neuroinclusive School program, and it's called Gifted 101. And it is a 9-week course that our teachers do. Any teacher can do for free online. It's really fun. It's got all of our champions feature in it and little video bites. It's very practical, and it's a great introduction not only to giftedness or high potential learners who got those curious sparky minds and just need some more, and as well as to neurodivergence and a lot of the characteristics of neurodivergent learners and strengths-based teaching. That is a really key approach to working with gifted learners and with neurodivergent learners more generally. So really encourage people to go and look at Gifted 101. It's a great thing to do with a small group of teachers, and we've structured it in a way so that you've got a journal where you're like trying out ideas and then coming back next week and reflecting on them. Yeah. So any other comments there, Madeleine?
I would say the course is on 3 sections. In the final section, it's called Things That Work. And we've really deliberately chosen strategies that you can use with your whole class that will benefit your neurodivergent learners. They're not strategies that are here, go and write an individualized learning plan for one learner that's going to take pages and pages and hours. It's not strategies like that. These are high impact strategies that you can use with your whole class and see what happens. And we really encourage that spirit of trying it and seeing right the way through Gifted 101. So even if you're thinking, well, I don't have gifted learners, you've got some quirky learners in your class, 100%. So getting into Gifted 101, learning more about some of those quirky kids you might have, and then trying out some of those strategies. Try them and see what happens. See who responds really well. See who says, oh, that was unusual. Try it and see. It's really worthwhile.
And I think that comes in to our the question that Nicola has asked about that your daughter doesn't want to feel different, doesn't want to be singled out as the kid that needs the teacher aid or the kid that needs extra or whatever else. And I think Katie wrote this point there about how incredibly sensitive young people and humans are to being treated differently or being singled out. And, you know, I have a daughter in the same position, so we very much get it. And I guess that's why what we are advocating for is a whole class approach that recognises where teachers do, as say Annabelle has said, is ask everyone what their learning needs are, how they like to be supported, what kind of environment they like to be in. It makes everybody, and a teacher, you know, explicitly says, you know, for people who have, you know, some issues with processing, you know, auditory, you know, instructions, I'm just going to put those on the board here, just basically just assuming that you've got every type, and it's completely normal for people to access ideas, to want different things, and just keep the whole class being like that, rather than I just teach like this for normal kids and different kids sit in the corner with the teacher, right?
Absolutely. Maria, what did you want to add on that note?
I think the main thing for me personally is that when you're the reason why so many kids feel uncomfortable or feel a bit weird when they don't want to be seen as like a different person is a lot of it is the way that it's sort of marketed in a school. So when this is just a personal thing for me, so you know, if the other champions have a differing view, I think it'll be really interesting to maybe, you know, this could be a whole discussion itself, but just keeping it brief. For me personally, whenever it's like you get drawn out of class to do something, or you get put into another room, that is quite like dehumanizing and quite insulting for neurodiverse people, because it's like they're publicizing that you're different. What I don't like is also the sort of like trying to be like positive names, like if you want like a neurodiverse club, calling it like the Special Brains Club or the Cool Brains Club, because kids can see through that. Kids know that you think they're weird. I remember at primary school, my teachers tried to force me into something like that. I think they called it the Super Brains program. It was just so obvious to me that they just thought I was weird and they thought I was different, and they were just trying to hide that. So I think you need to go for the whole class approach, because when you single it out and when you try and sugarcoat it in these nice words, kids can see through that. And then it's like, you think I'm weird, but you don't even want to tell me to my face.
Oh, Lily.
I just want to add on to what Maria was saying. This is coming from a perspective like when I thought I was neurotypical when I was younger in primary school. We had this boy who I assume had ASD, and he was often drawn to the side, separated, like two completely different worlds. But it's also how the teachers talk to the neurotypical students about him. He was like, don't interact with him in case he gets angry. It was like we weren't taught how to help him. We were taught to avoid him. And it's like, it kind of gains pity from students, but there's not supposed to be pity there. Like, it's just another thing that people have to deal with. And something I personally find really annoying is when teachers or people talk to me in a baby voice when we're talking about like these issues, and it's like, it's time for separate accommodation now, and I'm like, okay, yep, talk to me like an adult, thanks. Yeah, so that's just my perspective. Like, just because like we see the world differently doesn't mean we're on a completely different world. Like, we still live in the same space.
Oh, amazing. That's a fabulous quote to hold in mind. It's awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have another couple of questions that we can jump to?
There is some discussion here around which people are clubs suitable for. Can it be older than year 10? And I was sort of halfway through typing it, but I might as well say it, but what's just fascinating for us is that how much our like minds like being together. You know, our champions are actually all the way between kind of 15 and 23, and oh boy, do we have big discussions about absolutely everything. And you know, you guys can share, but you know, we have so much in common, and the way we are thinking and are passionate and everything is what keeps us together. It doesn't actually matter how old you are. So for example, in our clubs, we have a really cool thing. Once a term, we have a whole week of online sessions where people can come in and speak live to each other. And our older champions gave sessions on their passions and talk to our younger champions. And, you know, just to give one example, Kartini Clark, who's our CEO of the champions, is 23, you know, final year law student, absolutely passionate about mushrooms and scams, and had a fantastic session with a whole lot of probably, you know, 7, 8, 10-year-olds about mushrooms, all mushroom addicts, you know, speaking the same language. So yeah, clubs, you know, if you're a young person or your students want to hang out with other passionate scientists or coders or creative writers, go for it.
Yeah, and definitely for those older ones, the rangatahi version of our clubs, it's less about age and more about desire for that kind of intellectual, meaty discussion. So, for instance, in our younger clubs, the discussion is younger in how it flies. So there's a lot of emojis, and there's a lot of kind of quite casual chat, whereas in our rangatahi clubs, in the stream, in the chat is often more like, if you met Anne Boleyn, what advice would you give her? You know, the chat is far more maturely minded, and it's yeah, we can all jump to that if we're historians. But it's that different quality of the chat, but we would welcome kids who are older, and if they want to hang out in our clubs, we would absolutely welcome them. We've been hosting a visitor from Japan this week, and she is the Japanese equivalent of a young neurodiversity champion, and she is joining our Dreamers Club because her whole life, as she describes it, has been described as too philosophical. And our Dreamers Club is all about those philosophical thinkers getting in, getting together, comparing philosophies, thinking through all sorts of meaty topics through the lens of philosophy. Okay, Nikita.
I just want to give a suggestion. There's some talk about, and especially I hear this a lot about, building resilience to the outside world. As someone who's suffered a lot of trauma in the education system for 13 years in a row, going undetected with neurodiversity is like hell on earth. And the entire point of this workshop is to deconstruct neuronormativity and the idea that there should be a norm. So I don't, as a neurodivergent person, I do not endorse the concept of building resilience to the outside world. I think it's very harmful. I think it's very ableist. And I think that educators should work together with their students in order to reach a middle ground and a compromise that is able to be sustained by both the schools, educators, and the students, the neurodivergent students as well. So yeah, essentially this is all about breaking down neuronormativity. I just want to drill that in there. Thank you.
That's so important, Nikita. I really thank you for making that point so strongly. And I think, you know, as Katie Rose said, and as you're saying too, fundamentally, this is all about respect and relationships. and communicating. And the reality is we're in these schools, we're in these rooms, we're in these groups together, and all of our brains are different, and it's up to us to work out how we run them, how our environment is, how we talk to each other, in ways that mean that most of us, for most of the time, can be in the zone. And it won't be all the time. There'll be times that challenge us, but then we can have things like calm spaces to regroup. But actually just being respectful of the fact that everyone is experiencing their environment, their world, what they're doing in a different way. And it is our responsibility to ask people how they are finding it, to listen to their answers, to respect what they say, and to act on it. Not just assuming that it's okay to keep going as you have always done. And so, yeah, communications, respect, and you know, it's exciting to think that workplaces, families, schools could have really great conversations about what people need to be their best selves.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Looking at the time, it is time for us to wind up. Thank you again for choosing to spend some time with us this evening. We really value the time that you're putting into making your school, your teaching more neuro-inclusive. Thank you also to our fantastic champions who advocate so beautifully for themselves and for other neurodivergent young people. We wouldn't be doing this without you. You are amazing young people. Thank you so much. And a karakia for us to close. Kia tau, tō rangi Māori, ki runga, inga iwi o te ao. Peace be to everyone in the world. Have a super peaceful evening. Thank you again for coming. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye. And we shall now close. Bye-bye.